Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Entertainment. My name is Alex, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be categorizing the games that I have played and reviewed in our Road to Baldur's Gate 3 series using tiermaker. And there are a couple of things different about this. First, this won't be a scripted video. And second, this was originally intended to be a live video. But I ran a test drive with a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, that's a cool slideshow." So I don't think I have the appropriate internet connection to pull this off. But for the time being, I think this will serve. Now, I would like to seize the opportunity to thank all of you for tagging along through these many months or weeks or however long you have been tagging along. You have been, like Sevron says, ridiculously awesome. And I am going to let you in on a little secret, or rather a little anecdote. I watched this channel that is called Mike Become the Knight. It's a music channel, and its host labels himself the music snob. Not the humblest claim to make, and this guy is actually pretty fun to watch. He's actually pretty cool. If you like progressive rock and metal, or music in general, check him out and show him some love if you like him. Now, this guy at some point said that the experience of having a YouTube channel had been humbling. And I thought, this guy's full of shit. I generally think that whenever I hear a YouTuber saying that, and I've heard a few say that. But now that I have my own channel, I think I know where they are coming from, and this is why. A few weeks ago, months even, I made the infamous video on Icewind Dale, and I dropped the ball there. I will say that I stand by the things that I said about, well, the things that I like and that I don't like about that game, but you illuminated me on a few things that rendered some of my aspirations about this game pointless, and that's fine. There were like 5, 6, or 7 of you in the comment section who addressed this in a way that was really humbling. You said something along the lines of, "Man, you are wrong because of this and this and this and this." And when I checked out, man, yes, I was very, very wrong. But what was humbling about that was that in all these cases, you said something along the lines of, "Yep, you dropped the ball, but I like the videos, so keep the work," or some sort of encouragement. And I found that incredible, because it took me back to a time in which I was more of an asshole. 20 years ago, I was very knowledgeable about mafia and organized crime. And these are two different social phenomenons. They are related but different. And I thought, if YouTube had been a thing 20 years ago, and if someone had made a video about these topics and had made mistakes equivalent to the ones I made in the Icewind Dale video, I would have butchered that guy. I would have said every reason why the video sucked. I would have encouraged him to quit his channel and never make videos again. Of course, I would have been an asshole, and nobody would have gained anything from such a feedback. And I understand this now, 20 years later, but it's comments like the ones you made that remind me of this and make me want to be a better person and to make my channel better. Also, some of you were incredibly supportive during these last 2 weeks in which I was a little bit sick, and I really wasn't expecting that. So that's the kindness of strangers for you. Well, that being said, let's get to it. Let's talk about the games and where they stand in this tiermaker category thingy. So before I do that, I'm going to sort of organize these games according to the order in which I played them for this series of videos. So yes, this seems correct. This one should go here, and then we have this one, and then this one, and then we have the Neverwinter Knights 2 games. And yes, you will notice that there is no Neverwinter Knights 1 nor Divinity Original Sin 1. I did not have these games, I still don't have them, and I had played Neverwinter Nights 2 before, and that's why I thought, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to get Neverwinter Nights 1 and play the game and its expansions for this series. because this game is long, and if you add both of its expansions, it's ridiculously long. So I thought, nah, I'm going to skip this one, because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm playing these games again and reviewing them is because I want to dive into Baldur's Gate 3, all hyped about the lore and the sort of the coast and the Forgotten Realms thingy. And this was a good way to revisit some of these games, which I love, and play for the first time some others that I had never played, like Siege of Dragonspear and Heart of Winter and Icewind Dale 2. So I thought, yeah, let's do this. There will be anecdotes in this video, so it might be a little bit longer than you're used to. Let's start with Baldur's Gate 1. Well, Baldur's Gate 1, I admit, was not my first CRPG experience. Well, it was probably way before that with Wizardry 1, the first Wizardry for the Nintendo Entertainment System. But move forward a decade, perhaps, to the year 2000. 2001, maybe? 2001, yes, it must have been 2001. I walked into a store and I saw this absolutely beautiful box that was immediately enrapturing. It was the box for Arcanum. And I picked up the box and I saw that it was a Sierra game. And you should know that I am a huge Sierra fan. So I said, wow, there's a Sierra game that I don't know about, because these games came with their catalog. But I had never seen Arcanum listed in any of the catalogs, and I thought, maybe this one slipped my radar. So I turned it around and saw the back of the box. It seemed to be a Diablo-like game. And at the time, I was playing Diablo like nobody's business. Diablo 2. And I thought, what? This is a Diablo 2 game made by Sierra? Pfft, make no mistake about it. I'm gonna play this. So I picked up the box, I bought the game, went back home, I read the manual first, and I thought, this is one of the best books I have read. It was beautifully written, it was immersive, it really sold me the experience, and I immediately jumped into the game. I installed the thing, and I was floored by the many options that I had in the character creation screen. And I thought, this is incredible. I have never seen anything quite like this. And as I started playing the game, I was just drawn in. It was the lore, it was the characters, it was the story, leveling, the whole thing of technology versus magic. It was incredible. And I experienced one thing that I really wasn't expecting, and it was that the characters actually change throughout the journey. In most of these other games, you travel with a party of people, and depending on what you say and what you do, they like you more or less. But you have to adhere to what they think is good or bad. They don't change their minds about that. There is very little growth in that aspect, pertaining at least your relationship with them. It's like, I'm evil, and every time you do something good, I'm going to like you a little bit less. But it's not like they are going to change their minds about things by watching you do things and listening to you talking to people. That happened in Arcanum. There were 2 or 3 characters that made an incredible journey, an incredible introspective journey. They were very different people at the beginning and at the end of the game. That is something like I had never seen before or since. And I made this video on companions, and Virgil of Arcanum was there, and it was because he indeed made a journey like I had never seen. He started off like a lost, stray soul trying to find his way, and depending on your approach to things, he would change, and he would become affirmed in his belief, or maybe renounce the Panari and say, listen, I can be a good person without adhering to this bunch of lunatics. Or he could go back to being evil, because before he was taken into the order by brother Joachim or Joachim, he was a thief. So these are things that can happen in Virgil's life while he travels with you. And I found that to be incredible. And the many branching paths with impactful decisions, it was just incredible. So I played the game and I told some friends about it. And I said, this is incredible. You should play this. This is one of the best games I have ever played. And they said, oh, well, this sounds like Baldur's Gate. And I thought, well, maybe I have not played Baldur's Gate. And they were like, oh, you have never played Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2? And I said, nope. Well, you're only missing the 2 best games ever made. And I was like, well, tell me more about them. and they told me about them, and yes, they absolutely sold me these games because I am more a medieval fantasy guy than a Victorian steampunk meets fantasy guy, and that was what Arcanum was about. So I said, let's change. I'll lend you Arcanum, and you can lend me Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, and that's what we did. And yes, that was a time in which you would actually give your CD to your friend, and he would give you his. So I installed Baldur's Gate, I jumped into it, and the introduction was awesome, and I thought, oh, this is going to be good. Then there was character creation, and I thought, where are the other options? It was robust, it was cool, but I felt like there was something missing because Arcanum was huge and there were so many options and things that you could change. So I went ahead and created my character and I dove into the game. And I thought the initial location was awesome, and I really like how it eased you to the mechanics of the game. And I thought, this is cool. This is something that Arcanum could have used. And then you meet Gorion, and it all became kind of generic. By that time I had read many of these choose your own adventure D&D books, these that have decisions that you make. If you want to do this, go to page such, and if you want to do that, go to place such other. And I compared inevitably Baldur's Gate to these books, and it wasn't quite up to par. And I guess that the whole point with this little anecdote is to establish that one tends to fall in love with the first game, movie, or show that one watches because one doesn't have previous experience to water down the impact. And probably this was the first RPG, or at least the first isometric RPG that has characters and an intricate story and a decision most people played. Because we had CRPGs before that. We had Wizardry, for example, but Wizardry wasn't quite like this. There weren't decisions to be made, or branching paths, or quests. It was just a dungeon crawl with turn-based combat. And then there was the Forgotten Realms games. This was the first story-based CRPG that brought the tabletop experience to a video game, and the developers programmed enough situations to recreate this experience, and it was awesome. But for me, that game was not Baldur's Gate, it was Arcanum. So when I played Baldur's Gate, and having read some choose your own adventure D&D books, by the time I met Baldur's Gate, I was a little bit, I don't know if seasoned is the word. I had a previous experience that perhaps watered down the impact. Of course, when I engaged in combat, I said, okay, this aspect of the game is light years better than it is in Arcanum. Yes, Arcanum sucked in terms of its combat. It was much too fast. It was like a Chaplin movie. It was bad. There were ways to circumvent it altogether, like if you chose the summoning school and you leveled that school all the way to the top tier level skills, you could summon ogre champions that made short work of everything. So combat became a non-thing. It was a non-issue. You just cruised through the game with your ogre champions obliterating everything. And that was my way to, go around its poor combat. But Baldur's Gate 1 had very good combat. And I thought, okay, I understand why my friends like this so much. But I continued playing the game, and after Candlekeep, I felt like the game descended into a bit of a boring valley, so to speak. I felt the locations were much too big, there was very little to do in them. Well, the things that I already mentioned in my review. And then I talked to my friend and we shared impressions, and he said, dude, Arcanum sucks ass. I'm sure you're loving Baldur's Gate 1. And I'm like, well, not so much. I really prefer Arcanum. I'm sorry. And he was like, what? This garbage CRPG? Well, we didn't refer to these games as such back in the days. But he was not impressed with Arcanum, and I was not impressed with Baldur's Gate. Oh, and about the companions, I tried to take the same companions everywhere to see if they would change their minds or grow or learn new things about their past, and nothing relevant happened. Yes, they did intervene from time to time and they had things to say, but I didn't really care about any of that. And some of you have pointed out that, well, that's because you took the bad companions. Well, I also tried taking Vaconia and Edwin and some of the others that you like, but I am particularly not an evil party guy. I do not like Morrigan, I do not like Sabine, I do not like Vaconia. I'm sorry, I was never impressed with Vaconia. When I met her in Baldur's Gate 2, I felt like she was a little better there, but still not impressed. I'm sorry. What can I say? I think that Companions in Arcanum were much, much, much better. But at some point I hit the Duskwood Mines, I think it was the Duskwood Mines, and then the game started firing on all cylinders. This dungeon was difficult, it had new characters, it had a priest cleric, sorry, is it cleric or priest? Can't remember. Jeslik. I found that guy, and that guy changed everything. That was like the guy that I was needing for my party. And not long after that, I hit Baldur's Gate, and there I said, oh, so this is why people find this game amazing, because that location was incredible. It was filled with people and tasks and quests, and it was busy and alive and lived in. And there were many ways to go on about all these quests. That's where the great Baldur's Gate was. And because of that final stretch of the game, I was hyped about Baldur's Gate 2. But I don't think that final stretch of the game is enough to elevate my overall impression to great, or even to the top threshold of good. I think it was a good game, but not great. And nothing really changed this second time with the enhanced version. There were some things that were actually enhanced, some that were actually worse, or rather that kind of broke the immersion. But all in all, I suppose it's a decent new take for Baldur's Gate, but it just didn't do it for me. I'm going to come back to this anecdote later when we review or when we move Baldur's Gate 2, but that was it for me. And then I jumped into Baldur's Gate 2. That was, of course, 20 years ago or so. But we're going to talk about Siege of Dragonspear now. This was a game that I played for the first time last year, and I didn't know anything about it. I knew that it was an expansion to Baldur's Gate 1. I really didn't know anything, and of course, I didn't know anything about the controversy that surrounded this game. So I played Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, and when I was done, I was immediately thrown into Siege of Dragonspear. And my first impression was a good one. This first location that you find yourself in is busy, it has many quests, combat is challenging, there are even some puzzles, it's beautiful to look at. It's a dungeon, it's a cave, and it's still awesome. I thought, oh, okay, this is definitely a step up in quality. But as I played the game, something struck me as odd, and it can be summarized as it not being Baldur's Gate. And I already mentioned the issues that I have with this game, and some of these issues are issues that I also had with Pathfinder Kingmaker and with many other properties in entertainment nowadays. And it is basically that often writers would try to serve a purpose other than creating a story for the fans of the franchise. And I'll leave it at that. There were many things thrown in there that added nothing to the franchise and that took a great deal away from it. But this game does have a few redeeming qualities, most of which have to do with the gameplay, in my opinion. I think that the final stretch of the game is phenomenal. I think the siege is exciting and high stakes, and descending to the circles of hell was amazing. Defending your stronghold was really cool. That dungeon in which you have to fight the leech is also awesome. There was a lot of awesome content here. I didn't think it was unbalanced in terms of the classes. Not for me, that was not my experience. I had a dwarven defender, that's a fighter. I was playing it, I think, in the second hardest difficulty. I had no major issues with this. But I understand people who played evil parties, and even people who played good parties, who are not tanks, thinking, I didn't have a proper tank, or this or that. I understand. That was not my experience, but I understand people who weren't crazy about the options available, gameplay-wise, in terms of companions, that is. So, I would say this is kinda meh. So, rewind again to Baldur's Gate 2. When I finished Baldur's Gate 1 for the first time, I started playing Baldur's Gate 2. I wasn't thrilled with that initial stretch, trying to leave the dungeon, of escaping from Irenicus imprisonment. I didn't think that part was particularly engaging. I felt the initial stretch in Baldur's Gate, in the original Baldur's Gate, was better, but when you hit Am, which is early in the game, the world of possibilities opens up and there are things to do, people to meet, stakes become super high very quickly, and you can go on about your business in various different ways. And companions have their own lengthy missions, some of them include seizing strongholds and whatnot. It's incredible. This game is like nothing I had ever played, and I thought, oh, so this is what people are oh-boying and oh-wowing about. The combat was even better than in Baldur's Gate 1, light years better, actually. The locations were richer, there were many more of them in terms of big cities. It was really, really awesome. You had also some content from Throne of Bhaal that you can access in Baldur's Gate 2, like that tower, that's a huge dungeon with many floors and levels and bosses and things that you can do one way or another. It was a lengthy adventure with peril and turns of events. This game is a blast to play, and it has a huge replay value. And by huge replay value, I don't necessarily mean a large amount. There is, of course, a large amount of hours, but the replay value comes from your decisions, the way in which you decide to play the game, who you want to help, who you want your companions to be, and this is quite remarkable. I am still impressed with this game. I played it for the third time because I did play this game twice in a row back in the day, and I played it again this time, the enhanced version, and it's still a phenomenal game. Without a doubt, this deserves to be in the great tier, and spoiler alert, it's probably the best game that we are going to be reviewing here. Then came Throne of Bhaal. I thought this was a mediocre expansion. I thought it was rushed, I thought it was unfinished, I thought it was insulting the way in which they tried to tie some of the ends with some plot devices that are blatantly there because it's convenient for them so that they don't have to create more cities, more quests, more characters. Being in a place where you can summon your other companions out of thin air, that is way too cheap. Going back to the pocket plane after you defeat a boss so that you are told which is the next boss that you have to take down, that is really cheap and really poorly designed. Compare this to Icewind Dale 2. The progress in Icewind Dale 2 comes from learning new things throughout the journey. It's not going on an adventure, killing the boss, and then going back to the pocket plane so that you're told what you have to do next. This is really bad. I think though the combat is challenging. Some people hated the combat here. It felt like my tactical talents were being challenged here. I liked it, and I thought the initial stretch at Saradush was awesome. That location was very Baldur's Gate-y. That was what I expected from the expansion. There were quests to do, people to meet, you could do these quests in different ways. There was proper Baldur's Gating. But after you exit Saradush, it's go to this dungeon, kill everyone, kill the boss. It became Icewind Dale, and I wasn't thrilled with that. The final boss was awesome, it was challenging, and I can see where some of the other boss fights in Pillars of Eternity, for example, and Pillars of Eternity 2, especially the mega bosses, come from. They come from your final confrontation with a Melisande. I think this is a mediocre game that has moments of greatness, and that the best thing it has to offer you can access in the core game. Everything else that's not that tower is also not that great. So for me, this is in the meh tier. Next is Icewind Dale. Regardless of the things that I might have been wrong about, I still think the story in Icewind Dale is bad. It's badly designed, and I don't think you can say, well, but Icewind Dale is not a game that you play for the story. I am sorry. Every CRPG that I play it for the story, at least in part. If the combat is better or worse, that's great. I, of course, play these games also for the combat. But if the story is bad, then your whole reason to do what you're doing is not strong, and you end up not caring too much about it. And that's what happened with Icewind Dale. It started very strongly, but when you hit Kuldahar and you get your first mission, and your first mission does not set the stage for what you have to do next, as it happens in Icewind Dale 2, and you have to go back to Kuldahar and tell Arundel, listen, I didn't find anything new. And he is, oh well, then perhaps you should go to this other place. I said, okay, this is garbage. So I'm going to have to go to this location, kill everyone, kill the final boss, get what I need from him or her, then go back to Kaldahar, then get the excuse for the next part of my journey. It was not great. Now, there are things, and I mentioned those in my review, that I love about Icewind Dale. For starters, I love that you create your entire party however you wish, and when you see your own tactical design come to fruition, it's awesome. And I think the combat here is even better than in Baldur's Gate 2, I would say. That's how good the combat here is. I think the music is the best music. In all these series, this is the best music, hands down. I have no doubts. Some of you said, no, well, the music in Icewind Dale 2 is better, the music in Divinity Original Sin 2 is better. For me, the music in Icewind Dale was the best. That Kaldahar track epitomizes what medieval fantasy is about. And the character creation track in this enhanced edition is just bonkers. It's crazy good. And the locations are immersive. They really draw you in. They do the work that the story doesn't. And there are interesting pieces of lore to be discovered there about the dwarves and the elves and how they were played against each other. And when you meet that character and you can decide whether to kill him or not, it's interesting. It has its interesting moments. But unfortunately, the story is a little too weak. The ending was deeply unsatisfying, the voice acting was crap, there were things that I wasn't crazy about. For me, this is still a good game. I would still say this is a good game, borderline meh though, and I know that some of you are going to hate me for saying that, but just can't say anything else. However, Heart of Winter and Icewind Dale 2 were two games that I had previously not played. And I had previously not played them because Icewind Dale didn't impress me. But 20 years later, or 18, or however many they are, I know that someone in the comment is gonna say, you couldn't have played this game 20 years ago because it's just a, generic referential number. But what I mean is that I didn't play these games originally because I wasn't impressed with Icewind Dale. So I picked them up for the first time, and hell, this game really surpassed my every expectation. The story was well written, well crafted. I really liked the final villain. It had very strong motivations. It was impressive. Her narration was touching. She was evil, and I was still feeling like she had a very good point. And even if all this was revealed in the final fight, before the final fight, they were really clever setting the stage for this. Through the barbarians and through the other characters, it was really good. I really felt like the initial location, Lonelywood, was better than East Haven. The things that you had to do there felt more interesting, more like things that you want to willingly help with, to help sort out. And I think that the Trials of the Lure Master was an amazing expansion to this expansion. It had brilliant combat. I really like the location. I really like the feeling of gravitas and urgency of the mission. You have to defeat this guy or you're trapped there forever. And that's quite literal. You can't continue to play the game until you're done with this. I really liked this. I also like how puzzles were implemented here. I didn't think that this was the appropriate design or the appropriate game, so to speak, to bring puzzles into. But they were seamlessly integrated and in a very smart way. I really was impressed with this expansion, and I am going to say this is in the great tier. I really liked it. It was short, but my experience with it was very, very pleasant. So the other game that I played for the first time this year was Icewind Dale 2, and this one blew me away. Some of you like Icewind Dale 1 better, and I can't understand why. I really like the party creation here. I prefer 3rd edition D&D, and I don't know, I'm not a tabletop guy. So some of you say it was not well implemented in Icewind Dale 2. I don't know why you would say this. I love the things that you can do with your characters. You can watch the video, you're more than welcome. I think that this surpassed my every expectation in terms of the story too. I also like that it was not as linear as the first one. Of course, the story starts in point A and it ends in point F or G or whatever, but throughout your journey, there are things that you can do in significantly different ways. if you have a certain talent, if you decide to help this person or that person. I think that was phenomenal. I wasn't expecting that. It surpassed my expectations. It was exciting. I got the feeling of adventure that I had gotten from Baldur's Gate 2. There was humor here that was very meta, very fourth wall breaking, and I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was genius. And I think I didn't mention this in my review. I forgot to mention that in my review. The fact that this game makes fun of CRPG tropes, but engages in many of them at the same time, in a self-aware way, that is just brilliant. I love this game, except the Dragon's Eye dungeon. I hated that dungeon with all my heart. I thought it was very poorly designed, and no, it's not because the combat was difficult, but I know that if I play this game again, and I will play this game again, the problem with this game is that when you have a YouTube channel and you want to review games and put out videos every week, the problem with this game in that context is that it is too long. So I'm going to have to find a moment to replay this, because this really surpassed my every expectation, and I'm actually gonna put it before Heart of Winter. Yeah, I would say this is the right order so far in the great tier, this is the right order in the good tier, and this is the right order so far in the meh tier. You will notice that Neverwinter Nights 1 is not part of this journey. Again, I don't have it. I felt like it was going to take up too much time, and some of you do not seem to be thrilled with it, but most of you seem to be thrilled with its expansion, so maybe I will give it a try. I owe those of you who have asked reviews on Torment and Arcanum. You already know, though, how I feel about Arcanum, and also Torment. The fact that Morte is my favorite companion gameplay-wise, and is also in my top 10 companions story-wise or lore-wise, should tell you a little bit about how I feel about Torment. Those reviews are coming. Neverwinter Nights 2 was not a great game. It was riddled with bugs, poor design decisions, terrible mechanics, graphics were meh. It was not great, but not only was I never bored, I was always invested in what was going on. It is a giant cheeseball of a story, but sometimes it made me say, yeah, give me some of that sweet cheese. There are moments that I enjoyed in spite of them being super cheesy. There are moments that I genuinely enjoyed quite a lot, and it's filled with situations that, in spite of being tropey, are amazing. You know, trial by combat, defend your stronghold. That fight against the dragon was awesome. This game is filled with awesome moments, and when it's not awesome, it is at the very least serviceable. There were no moments in which I said, fuck this game, I don't want to play this anymore. I was consistently entertained. The final stretch of the game, after the defense of your stronghold, was kind of too long and boring. I already mentioned that, but the rest was just really entertaining to play. So for me, this is a good game, so that's where I'm gonna drag it to. That takes us to Mask of the Betrayer. I had already played this game. When I played it, I said, this is the best expansion I have ever played, without question. Then I played Blood and Wine for The Witcher 3, and I said, nah, this is the best expansion. But now that I'm replaying, that I replayed this expansion, I think, I don't know, man. This expansion is just phenomenal. And the story is hands down the best story in this lot. It beats the crap out of everything else here. And combat is very challenging and significantly more difficult than it was in Neverwinter Nights 2. And for me, it was even better. That fight against Oku was phenomenal. In that final stretch, going to Kelemvor's domain and choosing whether you wanted to side with Akachi's crusade or with Kelemvor forces, this was off the charts. This is without a doubt in the great tier. And you wanna know what? I would say it's the best. Or at the very least, oh, this is acting up. Or at the very least, on par with Baldur's Gate 2. Of course, this is an epic adventure with huge replay value, and one that you can put 200 hours into and still be entertained. This is quite not as big or epic, but the story is tremendously impactful. Then we go to Storm of Sahir, and there is a special place in my heart for this game. I know that the story is completely inconsequential and generic and boring. I know that this game gets very old very soon, but it has some absolutely magnificent ideas, and some of them I wish I had seen in more new games. Like, I really like the fact that you can create your own party from scratch, as you do in Icewind Dale 2, but there are also companions willing to join in, so you can combine these companions. Sadly, companions are crap, the ones that want to join you, but the fact that you have that idea thrown in there is really, really good. This was, I suppose, the precursor of mechanics like the ones you have in Divinity Original Sin 2, in which you have your companions, but you can also hire mercenaries. I think that the way in which this was implemented in Neverwinter Knights 2 Storm of Sahir is even better than the hire mercenaries thing. Really good stuff. I really, really like that. I really like that your characters have different actions and dialogues, and that they have this little bubble telling you, listen, this character can do this, so you might want to check what he has to say. And you go over and you check, and yes, this person can save you money or save you combat or allow you to gather more information. Unfortunately, that doesn't amount to much, because at the end of the day, it is pretty linear. And then you have this amazing map that you can explore, and that has lots of new locations and enemies and items for you to find. And the fact that Volo wants to hear about them, and then there is a quest for you to discover as much of the world as you can, makes all this exploration even more relevant. And I think that the part in which you have to liberate Port Last from the Luskans is amazing. If the entire game had been like that, it would have been great. Unfortunately, again, all these things that you do, trade, combat, enhancement, they don't make much of a difference in the big picture. So this is, I would say, a meh game. I really want to put it in the good tier, but I think it's somewhere in between here. Even though I might have given it a good score at the time, I think that compared to these other games, this one deserves perhaps the meh, if I'm completely honest. I have played this game twice, and I don't put it past me to play it again, so I don't know. Watch the video if you want to know how I feel about this game, what I think about it, but this is where I stand with this game. And then comes Divinity Original Sin 2. This one kinda slipped into this tier maker thing. I was not going to include it originally, because it is not a D&D game, but it is a game by Larian Studios, which is the studios that are making Baldur's Gate 3, so it's not that bad either. And it is medieval fantasy, so I suppose you can fit it in here. I have not played the original Divinity Original Sin. I did play the one that came before. I felt like it was a Diablo 2 clone with a twist, and that twist was interesting, but nothing to write home about. The reason why I bought this game was because I saw footage and I thought, wait a minute, this doesn't look like the first game. It looks different, it looks RPG-istic with story and characters and adventure, and I'm glad I got it. This game is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. It really turns the genre on its ear with its combat, with its level design. The level design here beats the crap out of everything on this list. The geographical formations, the ruins, the way in which you can use these things to your advantage, or at least you have to take them into account when you're fighting. It's bonkers. For me, there is no other turn-based combat design that comes close to this one. This is the best, without a doubt. The level design is also one of the best, if not the best. I also think that the story is pretty solid. I think that it is unnecessarily convoluted, like I said in the video. There are too many characters, there are too many things cluttering up this, maybe to make it longer, but I think that a solid adventure with high stakes, like the one you had in Baldur's Gate 2 and Icewind Dale 2, would have been awesome if it had been written in such a way, with the same premise in terms of who the bad guys are, who the good guys are, what's the overall situation, and what they want. That was great, but the way in which it was laid out, I think they could have benefited from a design a little bit more akin to the one in Baldur's Gate 2 or Icewind Dale 2. However, this game has a lot going on for it. Graphics are amazing, they draw you in. I really like the companions. In fact, I'm pretty sure these companions are the best in here, in this lot. They have their own missions. You can play as them. Their missions are strongly related to what you're doing. Maybe only Baldur's Gate 2 is better. Well, I guess that a case could be made for Mask of the Betrayer. But this game is definitely somewhere here. Somewhere here. It's either great or good. I don't know. Perhaps even here. I don't know. The secondary mechanics here are hideous. And if you check the comment section for this video, someone explains why this is. It was meant for co-op play, but I played it as a single-player campaign game. And for a single-player campaign, that trading system is garbage. So that watered down my... I'm gonna move it down to good, because I also think that the final act was a little bit weak. There were too many puzzles. I didn't like how they were designed. I didn't like that you do not have the branching paths that you have in Baldur's Gate 2, nor is the story as impactful as Mask of the Betrayer, nor the adventure as immersive as Icewind Dale 2. So if the combat is better, which it is, and if the graphics are better, and in some aspects it is still great, I think that in this context, it is perhaps good, borderline great. So if I can ever drag it, this is what my final tier maker list looks like. And I have as many great games as I have good ones, and then I have a few meh ones. None of these games is really bad. I wouldn't say, man, this game is bad. Some of them have terrible writing. Some of them get old very soon and drag. Some of them are disappointing compared to their core games, but I don't think I would call any of them bad. So check this out, perhaps make your own list. I can anticipate some changes here. I can pretty much tell that these three here are probably going to occupy a different place, maybe this one, but this is mine. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thank you for watching all the way up until now. If you like what I'm doing in this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. And remember, never stop gaming, but don't let gaming get in the way of your hopes and dreams. Bye everyone.